Bongbong, Wanamalana, good morning, Alphalava, and good morning, everybody. I recognize the relationships, knowledges, ancestors, and governance of Manol and Ngambri country on whose unceded territory we gather today at the ANU. I bring my ancestors' teachings of good conduct as I visit and tread lightly, and affirm my solidarity and commitment to supporting Indigenous sovereignties here and elsewhere forever. My name is Léuli Eshrāghi, and I honour my main Samoan Tafa and Tautua clans from the Samoa archipelago. I work across cultures and geographies as spiritual researcher in residence, contributing to the multi-year initiative Blue Assembly at the University of Queensland Art Museum, and as curator of the Aotearoa Biennial 2023, Yuki Kihara, centered on celestial navigation and other forms of connection and neighbourliness across Australia, Asia, and the Great Ocean, which opened 2 weeks ago in the Yarra Valley, just near Melbourne, whose rivers flow into Melbourne. I'm thrilled to be joining trailblazing curators, artists, and researchers, Antisana Balai, Yuki Kihara, Kruger, and Lisa Hilli. These illustrious colleagues push the boundaries of presence, agency, nuance, and complexity for their and our and surrounding communities. Having undertaken my postdoctoral research with the Initiative for Indigenous Futures at Concordia University, now the Indigenous Futures Research Centre in Montreal, I spent a lot of time considering how best to cross continental borders, be they oceanic, riparian, or terrestrial. I opted for expanding my curatorial practice to focus traversing imposed borders in productive ways, with the exhibitions Tolehua Mafua Manua in 2020, Samoan Histories, Screens, and Intimacies 1 and 2 in 2020-2021, Écrans de doctorat entre temporalité et mouvement and imaginative in 2020, and Pasakajinawan, La rivière qui passe entre les rochers, the river that passes through the rocks, also in 2021. The key with deploying the term research creation, which I learned during my postdoctoral fellowship, is that this enables us to speak to the panoply of research-based approaches to aesthetics, performance, critical theory, speculation, and ceremony that are responsive and responsible to our communities. I'm just going to quickly introduce Kim Kruger before passing over the mic. Kim Kruger is a lecturer and researcher with the Bougainville Academic Centre at Victoria University, Australia. She has a background in community development, community radio, broadcasting, and Indigenous arts management, including film, theatre, visual art, and festivals. Kim? We all know each other. That's the wrong caveat. Kim is undertaking a PhD research in Black Power at the intersection of Aboriginal and South Island political organisation. Recently, she has contributed essays for the monographs Destiny at the National Gallery Victoria and the literary 30 years Bold, Black, Brilliant within the Literary Theatre. Thank you.
Thank you, Léuli. Respect to Ngunnawal Ngambri elders and ancestors. Yes, as you heard, I'm Kim Kruger. I'm going to try and keep it short and sweet. Somehow, too many things in my hands. I hope you all got a copy of this catalogue in your conference bags. This is the exhibition that I'm going to speak to today, Sydney Road Blacks. So it was curated by myself with Lisa Hilli and my daughter, Savannah Kruger. And it's based on, I'm not going to talk too much about what's covered in the catalogue essays, and Lisa and I have both contributed essays in the catalogue. So basically it's, we know about South Sea Islanders, the history sort of starting in 1863 with the mass, importation is the language that was used, like commodities, people as commodities of Pacific Islanders into Queensland. But this story is about a group of, about 300 men that were brought into New South Wales and Victoria, which was all the colony of New South Wales at the time, 15 years prior to the mass importation in Queensland. Queensland wasn't yet a colony at this point, so in 1847, 2 shiploads of men, mainly from Lifu, Tanna, a few other islands, forgive me, I can't remember them all at the moment, but Tracy Banawama, her last journal article was entitled Boyd's Blacks, so go and read that, where she tries to trace what happened to all the men. And this story is about 10 men who were travelling down from Aotearoa country along the Dangala, the Murray River, down to Melbourne. And so, of course, this interested me. I live in Melbourne, was born and raised on Wurundjeri Big, living in diaspora from all my Indigenous homelands. So, and when I read this letter that my mum found in the archive, which was from the Assistant Protector of Aborigines to the Chief Protector of Aborigines, investigating these men, 10 men, who were reported as all sorts of things, as having absconded, which, you know, is the language that's used today about seasonal workers that walk off from unbearable conditions in, you know, today. Same language is used on our people. Anyway, so read the essays, I won't go on, but thinking about narrating our bodies and how we invited Aboriginal, Torres Strait and South Sea Islander artists to respond to this story, people that were connected to the history and the place, Sydney Road on Wurundjeri country. So I might just speak to what we see on the screen now. This is one of my works. We did a series of works responding to reports of the men. This is called Splitting Logs for a Feed. This is a retreat hotel in Sydney Road, Brunswick, where we have a Kruger open mic night. So it's well known to, it's a safe space for blackfellas. And the men were reported being sighted there, offering their labour to be fed. They were brought ostensibly on contracts which included rations, but they had to then work again to be fed. Might just move on to another image. This is from Wamba Wamba artist Palabala. I mentioned Boyd's Black, Tracy's article. Benjamin Boyd, a slave trader, brought these men out as an experiment for cheap labour on Aboriginal lands, and he brought up Wamba Wamba country. So this is her imagining what her ancestors would have thought when they saw the men on her country, and it relates to looking at their body adornment and relating it to their own adornment. But also, that's a page from the Wamba Wamba dictionary that kept falling open when she was thinking about this work. And some of the words are basically about these men must be the big-headed men. She was thinking about their hair, the big-headed men. You know, safe passage. And where did they go? They must have gone back to the stars. This is called Black Star, like a phenomenon that happens on her country. So it's about their making sense of these men. This work here on the left of this image is from Wurundjeri artists, a collaboration between a curator, Stacey Piper, Wurundjeri curator, and Maddie Nicholson, a Wurundjeri artist. And it's vinyls of Mandy's photography of country. And Mandy writes about a philosophy of Wurundjeri country, of 6 layers of country: the sky country, water country, you know, underwater, underground, all these things. And they're all represented in those images from the Buriwa, the river that runs through their country. And we projected onto that footage of the Jiri Jiri dancers, which is a Wurundjeri women's dance group, and they're singing language. And that was intentional about having Wurundjeri language and people in the space. To show that so that was that embodiment of people, that Wurundjeri people are still very much present and practicing culture and caring for their country. And it was also their response to if they had met the men on their own terms, because what happened was that, or the reportage is that the local people who were called New South Wales blacks at the time, not Wurundjeri or Victorian or whatever, because it was part of the colony of New South Wales, it wasn't yet its own colony, would hid when they saw the men. So apparently, according to white people, the town, all the blacks was cleared out. Anyway, so that they're saying if it was up to them, if it was on their terms, that if the men had come correct, if they'd come in the right way, they would have been welcomed. And to me, that's part of the kind of reciprocity, that we've talked about in earlier panels about how, if we're left to our own terms, we will find the right ways to reciprocate. So I might move on to another work. Thank you. The gallery is at Kinahan Gallery, which is on Sydney Road. So the story is of the men walking down this very road. And these works were by Destiny Deacon, who is a long-term resident of the area and has, connections to Lifu, Torres Strait and Queensland. And this is from her series Dolly's Eyes, which she made for her retrospective at the NGV in 2020, I think. So we wanted these works to, look at the people, gaze on the, sort of reverse the white gaze, I guess, in terms of watching the people in the gallery and watching the people in the street as well. This is my daughter's work, Savannah, called If You Prick Us. And this was responding to one of the reports where the men were stuck with pins as a kind of curiosity at a local hangout in Melbourne. So the report was about them being phlebotomised, which we had to look up. And she related that to her own experience as a Aboriginal and South Sea Islander woman and how people interact with her. This is a work by Sophia Belly Hardy, and just about her Sydney Road, so she's very populated with all of the black people that she knows. So you can see her in the middle under the flag there. That's at the pre-open night market at the Retreat Hotel, and she went to primary school in that place, and all her relationality to Sydney Road. This is some of my work, which is, I did a photo series, and that was again about embodying the men, because the way they were talked about was savages, the red-haired cannibals. So I asked some of my brothers to reenact some of the places where they were reported, and they're all Aboriginal men. One man is Aboriginal South Sea Islander. And I asked them what they felt about playing South Sea Islander men, and they wanted to help tell the story. I might just go back to that last one, sorry. And these are wool bales, which I also wanted to take the space of the men. There were 10 of them, and they're inscribed with the reportage that you can see the letter, the handwritten letter from their sister protector on the side there. And the red writing is actually red wool stitched into the words are words for country. So Gig is Wurundjeri for land. And, I was referring to the men's red hair because the reference to the wool bales is they were talked about being absconding, but they were actually bringing wool down to Melbourne for, for export. So they were actually working, but, the narrative was that they were absconding. But I wanted to represent the men in the wool bales, but also to represent the country. So, so there's different words for country stitched into the bales. So it's the red men, the men's red hair is in the bales, and it's Wurundjeri country that's in the bales. It's Yorta country that's in the bales. It's Wamba Wamba country. The wool is grown out of Aboriginal country. So that's what the little wool bales are about. So I think that's all I'll say, except to say, we just love this too. We used Destiny's works to promote the show, just so that we had all these black faces surveilling the whole of Sydney Road in Melbourne, and which I just love. I'm going to end with my daughter's poem. I hope that kind of gives you a sense of the body embodiment of the work, and the kind of embodiment not just of our bodies, but of country as body. Like the water, the land. So Savannah is writes songs as well. So she did that Pricks little, what's it called? She changed the name about 10 times. It's Little Pricks and.
It was just called Prick. She didn't call it Prick.
Pricks.
I thought she was just going to call it Prick.
I can't. Yeah. I think it's fluid. Yeah. But there was a song that went with it, so I can't sing like she can, so I'll just read it. So I think the song's called "If You Prick Us." Maybe. Aren't we good curators? We have no material.
You are.
All right, so I think it's called "If You Prick Us." Put me on a pedestal, I'll make it my platform. I'm not an experiment, I'm my ancestors' greatest art form. My anatomy immeasurable, a topography of songlines. I am not your specimen, my essence can't be defined. Land and body not for sale, for your colonisation, for so-called civilisation. Your science cannot justify illegal occupation. I am not the missing link, I'm my dreaming and creation. Put me on a plinth, observation is the key. Expose all of my flaws, go on and tell me what you see. You can't pin me to your wall, I'm not your curiosity. Does laying bare my bones prove your superiority? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Save your questions for the end, so start thinking, writing. Really, really important. Thank you very much. I'm just going to introduce Aotearoa Balai and pass the mic. Aotearoa Balai was born, Auntie to me, so that's what I'm going to be using. Was born on Buka Island in the autonomous region of Bougainville, Papua New Guinea. She was an elder born of the Nakarikwa clan of the Haku peoples. Following 13 years of working for Bougainville Copper Limited, Aotearoa began her museum career as an assistant collection manager with the Indigenous Department at Melbourne Museum, where she worked from 1997 to 2002. From 2003 to 2016, she was the assistant curator of Indigenous art at the National Gallery Victoria, which is the largest public art museum in the country, with art from the Pacific as their main focus. Aotearoa co-curated the Women's Wealth Project for the Asia Pacific Triangle in Mining in 2018 to 19, and is currently the museum curator of the Living Museum of Logan. Thank you.
Chibong hau tabarabana. Wakachin halan ga hatrana vetrahantla hanta tapai romana. Ram lantaran tila lentakarin antr member. Aslotre Riana Tangres Balai Sana. Good morning everyone. I'd like to start by paying my respect to the custodians of the land which we gather here today. I pay my respect to the to the ancestors, the elders past, present and emerging. I also would like to pay my respect to the Lady Ahaiho, Professor Katerina. Thank you. And I also would like to pay my respect to these beautiful thinkers, the Pacific, who are helping me to carry forward the legacy hopefully we built along the way. I've known them since for the last 20 years or so, and it's wonderful for me to be here to share the stage with them, not as emerging artists, but accomplished and leaders of the future of the Pacific. I can honestly say I'm happy to fade out of the sunset, knowing that whatever I fought hard for the last 26 years is in good hands. I'd like to start by, I'll have the PowerPoint presentation that I will do is to sum up where I have landed through my journey as a curator. Now, when I started in arts, in this field 26, 27 years ago, I was the most untrained, unskilled academically in this field. And the reason why I heard Katerina speak about her journey yesterday, and I could identify with that because I was not normal. I am still not normal, and I will never be normal. And my normal is my normal compared to everyone else. And ABC, in celebrating 90 years, I was part of that group, and it had the title Pacific Auntie Went to University of Culture. That quote came from the interview I first had. Having spent 13 years working in the science field as what I call a bucket chemist. Coming to Australia, I couldn't get a job in this field because what does a woman know about science? What does a woman from the developing country know about science? And the rest is history. So Melbourne Museum was looking for a Pacific Islander to help them move the collection. A friend of mine, Olive Davis, said I should apply for this job, and I said, nope, I hated art, no nothing. I was going to be a doctor or a scientist. And then I figured out as a doctor we'll have to deal with blood. And even picking up poo-poo, as I would say, I don't have the stomach for that. So I figured dealing with plants and stones, they can't talk back to you. This is why I chose industrial environmental and industrial engineering science. That was I went in. Now to get back to this story, I got into museum art because my husband wrote the application for me, and she said, I believe this is the woman you should get, but she doesn't believe. Have a word with her, and then you can see for yourself. So I went for an interview as Mrs. Cleaver, because the last interview I got told that my name would be a deterrent because it was a money-making company. My name would be a deterrent, so I went in as Mrs. Cleaver. So during this interview, knowing that I felt that I was not going to be part of this art world, every answer that got thrown at me, I answered with the humor until at the end of the conversation, one of the interviewers from the Melbourne Museum said, now, there are people who have applied for this job who are highly qualified and have 30 years of experience. You tell us why we should hire you. And then I said, is this art form going to be cultural or contemporary? And they said, this art form is cultural. And I said, oh, well, you tell me the university, the hands that made those things went to, because I went to the same university called University of Culture, and every village, every culture in the world has that university. You just have to look for it or give it the space to breathe and speak. And that's how I ended up in this space. Now moving forward to, sorry, I hope I don't take up too much. And then I left it, I went to the NTV. Now it's commonly known that I showed my boobs to Curator to get a job.
I mean, a lot of vault, in the vault.
The reason is, after I left NTV, a friend of mine recommended I go and study either archaeology or anthropology or something to do, because they learned that all the work that I had in that space all I needed was to get a piece of paper so I could be recognized as one of the academic person in that space. Oh well, I went for an interview and this person just said to me, how old are you? And I said, I'm 46. I tell you something, you will be wasting your time. The most sought after position in the world is Curator of Indigenous Art. You will not get as close as being an assistant curator in the most prestigious institution, the NGV or the museum here. So I said to him, I think you are right. I don't need a university degree. I promise you one thing though, 2 years from today, I will be that person. When I started at NGV on the 27th of January 2004. When I look back at that date, that was the date, 2 years to the date, I became that person. Now, 6 months, Melbourne Premier has this, what I call a gala, which is a gala. I mean, I have no CV, I have no qualification. This is, my humor is humor because it shields the pain, so I could allow to do what I'm supposed to do, and to hopefully make a little dent in what's known as Eurocentric space or academic space. So people like me who may not be qualified in this space could come in and have a voice. Now, I met this guy 6 months because I happened to score a ticket from the Premier to go and attend this gala, the dinner. So we were standing admiring this thing, and he comes and, oh, there you are. How did you get here? So I knew exactly what he meant, and I said, oh, through that door. No, you didn't hear me properly. How did you get here? Through that door. And he goes, excuse me. And I said, oh, you mean, how did they get here? See, and my husband standing there and said, oh my God, it's not happening again. And I said, oh, look at this. The Premier obviously thinks I'm in the same caliber as you, so that's why I'm here. Anyway, and he goes, so what do you have to do now? And I said, oh, well, since you told me, remember the promise I made you? Since you told me I didn't have the brain, 2 years ago that I became that person. And my husband standing there, oh no, she's going to do it. Because I said to my husband, next time I meet this person, I'll show him my boobs. And then he says, oh. And I said, oh, well, since you told me I didn't have the brain, I used my next best asset. I lifted my top and I said, and my husband clapping. One vendor Wall says, excuse me, what did you say to this woman? I am highly qualified in this field, but no knowledge I have acquired is the same as the knowledge he goes. So that was how that came about. Now, I went back and I said to Curator, anyway, to cut the story, so bring it back to where we are. I have made up a decision, science, art, temple. No one's going to do that. That's where we are now. So, to bring it back to this conversation, through this journey as a curator with no formal training, when it came to publishing or writing something, I became an information box where people pick from and publish. Or because people will interview you and I would say, why can't I publish myself? Why can't it be published under my name? And they would say, because you don't have a piece of paper. And I said, but the information you're getting is not from an academic level. It's from my kind of academic. I'm academic in my culture, as you are academic in that sense. Anyway, I made the decision. I stopped asking myself why I wasn't there. I then made the decision to use my body, my presence, as that person who's going to break walls. So whoever comes after me doesn't have to go through what I went through. So for me, it didn't matter whether, for me, it's a physical presence in a space where we are talking about myself, talking about my culture, talking about our culture. So you know that we actually there, we are present. We have a voice. And while to pay respect to the researchers and those who went and collected our cultural material, I pay my high respect to you, because without you, the material wouldn't be here. However, having said that, we also have to create a space where, at that time, while it may have been right for you to interpret for us, to speak on our behalf, because you're speaking the language, you're interpreting the cultural material that your audience may not know about, so you're speaking their language, therefore you're speaking that language. We are now in a space where we speak the language, we know how to operate. Now, rather than just kick you, if we come out and kick you out, to me, it's reverse racism. And for me, that does not really, it does not really come with respect. However, we need to identify where we are, what our roles are, and then those who have been speaking for us, you step aside a little bit and give me a chance to be there. You don't fall out altogether. We may need you at some point, but give us a space to come in and speak or breathe life into the material that's in there. And from that, that's where I made the decision to be the present and the presence of Pacific people in a space that was occupied by academia or Eurocentric, if I may use that. Excuse me if I offend anyone, but that's how I saw it, and here I am. So I'll finally go to what sums up everything that I've been through. I am now the curator, museum curator for the Living Museum of Logan. Now the space is at the Kingston Butter Factory Cultural Center. Now when I say I work at the Kingston Butter Factory Cultural Center, people tend not to listen to the last bit, to the words. So they ask me, oh, are you packing the butter? Or are you cleaning? And I said, no, I'm the curator. Is it a new form of cleaning? And I said, and I go, curator starts with C, ends with R. What happens in the middle doesn't matter. So that's how, this is humor. I have used humor to protect myself from being hurt, because I felt and I saw myself as, if I'm not going to do it, then if I'm not going to be that person that will at least put a dent into the wall, that the generation after me is still going to do that. So this is now who I am today. If I could just...
Adi, you want to sit over there and question?
I'll just do a quick one. This is the Butter Factory, which was built in 1907. It ceased to operate in 1983. And then it was occupied by, there were ballet dances and a little theater. If you could go to the next one, just a quick one. During the development, when I started, it was a concept. And the staff, the Logan City Council spent more than 20 million on the precinct. The staff, it does not, given what they spent and the staffing of the museum, unfortunately, there is management, there is cleaner, there is someone in between, and that's me. I was the only staff until 3 weeks ago. They managed to hire me someone. So the Living Museum, when I started, because Logan has the highest multicultural communities in Queensland and maybe Australia. So my whole concept was migrants, as we are known, we come into Australia, we contribute to the economy, but where is our space to tell our stories? And a space where we feel we belong. So the whole concept was to have this space as a place where people can come and see where they belong. So now we have these places. The First Nations space is a dedicated space to the First Nations. And when I started, I said to the First Nation people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, I'm a First Nation of somewhere. Who am I to come and tell you how to run your affairs on your own land? So in this case, I'll be the facilitator. You come in and you tell me what you'd like to do. So with the guidance, this is what we've come up with. We have videos that acknowledges the languages. We have the aunties and uncles. And the lady here, Torres Strait Islander, she's her work is on the light. It was to mark the 150 year of Christianity that came into Torres Strait Island. Sylvia Nakachi is referencing all these things. And then when you enter, when you look at food, we may all come from different cultures, we may come from different areas and different backgrounds, but you're not afraid to try someone else's food. So food is a universal language. It's the thread that leads us together. So when you enter, we have a retreat full of people from the market, people, just local people. And then the blue one, I commissioned a Tongan New Zealand artist, Sam Tupo, and he's referencing banana. And I get asked a lot, we don't have a banana plantation in Logan. And I say, but when we travel around, you see a lot of banana. So that's why it is. So, no. The next one is, okay. We also have to be referencing the history of Logan itself. So we have that, it's on the top level. And public programs, we've had school, we have community, we have school programs that I'm establishing. It's not there, but we're there. Next one. We also have this school programs. Okay, next slide, just the last slide if you may. I'm doing a pilot trial of residency. So what we've done is I've got the Pacific Islander there with the elder doing the tapa cloth, which I will display later. The last one is a butter box. The Kingston Butter Factory also has a theatre, and this is what they display. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, Balai, and now I'm going to introduce Yuki Kihara, interdisciplinary artist of Samoan Japanese descent, whose work seeks to challenge dominant and singular historical narratives through art, dance, and curatorial practice. Kihara lives and works in Samoa, where she's been based for the past 11 years. In 2022, Kihara presented her critically acclaimed exhibition Paradise Camp at the 59th International Art Exhibition La Biennale di Venezia, with critical reviews published in CNN and Financial Times and The Guardian. Kihara is a research fellow at the National Museum of World Cultures in the Netherlands, and a major piece on her work on Zelda's Saturday paper tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for the fact that Ian Madre Field. My name is Yuki Kihara. Thank you everybody for being here. Léuli has done land acknowledgements on our behalf, so I'm just going to go straight into it. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to start off with a creation story that was recorded by Reverend John Stair, published in his account of Samoa in 1897. So this is the Samoan creation story. On the formation of two bodies being complete, they lived but were both males and dwelt on the land on which they were formed. One day, whilst fishing with a net called Fa'amutsu, one of them was injured by a small fish called the lo, which caused his death. Upon this, Tuli, or the Pacific golden plover, returned to the skies and bewailed the loss of one of the inhabitants of his land to his father when Naitosi was directed by Tangaloa to proceed to the earth to reanimate the dead body. Previously to which, however, he changed the sex of the male, deceased male, to that of a female. The two then became man and wife, the parents of the human race. So the sex, sexuality, and gender fluidity is something that is continued to be recognized in the way that Samoa culturally recognizes four genders. So we have Tane, which is a cisgender man, Fa'afine, which is a cisgender woman, Fa'afafine, which is made up of two compound words, Fa'a meaning in the manner of, and Fa'afine meaning woman, Fa'afafine in the manner of a woman, used to describe those like myself, assigned male at birth, who express your gender in a feminine way, and we also have Fa'atama, which is the opposite of Fa'afafine, those assigned female at birth, or express your gender in a masculine way. And then, so the Fa'afafine and the Fa'atama, although we are culturally recognized, we are not legally recognized. Next slide, please. So just a disclaimer that the next slide we're going to be talking about an alleged suicide.
So I just want to say if anybody needs, the number for Lifeline is 131114, and for Fa'afafine and Fa'atama specific cultural support, come and see myself afterwards.
Thank you. So one of the reasons that we are not legally recognized is because of the series of colonialisms and Christianities which enforce the Western binary divisions. And so because of that, a lot of the social ills that happens within Samoan society, things like the recent measles pandemic, COVID, and climate change are often blamed on the Fa'afafine and the Fa'atama community as a scapegoat. And this is one of many examples. Can we play the video?
To demonstrate the repercussions of legal discrimination in the way that the local media has reported on Fa'afafine issues, I have included this front page from the Sunday Samoan newspaper from 2016. This sensational and invasive unblurred photo relates to the death of Janine Tuivaiki, a young Fa'afafine student who allegedly died by suicide inside a church. Not only did the Sunday Samoan publish this image on the front page, but the article also referred to her as he. This caused a public uproar and brought to light issues relating to Fa'afafine and press freedom and ethics associated to publishing images related to suicide. As a result of this controversy, Journalists Association of Samoa established a media council to investigate complaints from the public about media coverage and to ensure that the media ethics and standards are observed. The Journalists Association of Samoa also invited the Samoa Fa'afafine Association to present a series of workshops relating to Fa'afafine community, including asking them their preferred gender pronoun and to address Fa'afafine with their full chiefly titles bestowed by their village. May Janine Tuivaiki rest in love.
This incident was really the driving force for me to wanting to create Paradise Camp, because Paradise Camp was 8 years in the making. I first thought about Paradise Camp when I had an opportunity to present a solo exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, where I saw paintings by Paul Gauguin for the very first time. So when I looked at the paintings, they reminded me of an essay that was written by Ngāhuia Te Roi Kotuku, who presented a paper at a Paul Gauguin symposium in 1992, where she described how she felt that some of the models in Paul Gauguin's paintings reminded of her Takatapui relatives in her village. So when I looked at the paintings myself, it also reminded me of the members of the Fa'afafine community. And the landscapes also looked very Samoan. So I actually later on found archival evidence that Gauguin actually used photographs of people and places in Samoa as his foundational reference to develop his major paintings. And then so I just kind of flirted around with the idea of actually doing a photographic series, which upcycle Paul Gauguin's paintings, featuring Fa'afafine models. But when the Janine Trivaiki incident happened, I knew that I couldn't rely on Samoa and the Samoan government to look after us and then to look after their streets. And then so what I wanted to do with Paradise Camp was to become a depository of the Fa'afafine and the Fa'atsama experience by ways of art. So when I say upcycling, it means that you take something old and discarded and then you improve it. So my photographs are an improved version of Gauguin's paintings. And so when we think about paradise, so the origin of paradise is essentially Adam and Eve, cisgender heterosexual couple, which has been gunned into us as the utopian society, which excluded, indigenous queer communities like myself. So I wanted to deploy the aesthetic of camp to challenge the heteronormativity of paradise. And then another word that I came up with is putting the indigenous in drag. So I would like to now play a 11-minute video. Thank you very much.
Best, Yuki. You're the best.
I had a good time up here.
Oh, man.
So good job lines for our wonderful last presenter, Gunatana artist and researcher Lisa Hilli, who creates and curates exhibitions that shift narratives and art histories with a Melanesian feminine lens. She has specialist knowledge of lens-based practices, the language of textiles, and interpretation of museum collections. Her recent projects include Birds with a Feather, highlighting the trailblazing career of Dame Meg Taylor, commissioned by the University of Melbourne, and Sydney Road Black's Black Mobility Cellar Surveillance, co-curated with Kruger and Savannah Kruger, presented at Kootenai Gallery. As an A&E student, Lisa's practice-led PhD project is focused on the visual representation and agency of Papua New Guinean women through photography and filmmaking.
Thank you, Léuli. Good morning, everyone. Bonolana. My name is Lisa. I'm a PhD student here at ANU, and I want to acknowledge my primary supervisor, Aotearoa. You're the reason why I'm here, Kati. Thank you. I have been an art student for many years, practicing artist. Now I sometimes curate. And in 2021, I was invited to respond to the University of Melbourne collections for a commission for an exhibition called Collective Unease. And when I was asked to respond to the museum collections, I noticed that there was someone missing of significance from their alumni, and that was Dame Meg Taylor. So if you look at the University of Melbourne website, they have a specific page for notable alumni, and you see, some of the big names there, including a very well-known feminist. But Meg Taylor is nowhere to be found. And I knew that Meg had a link to Melbourne. I just wasn't quite sure what. And I actually had read an interview with her in a book published by Anne Turner called Views from Interviews, something about women, Papua New Guinea women, emerging women. And it was all these sort of trailblazing women from Papua New Guinea in the 1970s when Papua New Guinea was an emerging nation out of colonial hands of Australia. And in that particular interview, Meg mentions that she was on the front page of the Age newspaper, which is, I guess, one of the more trusted newspapers in Melbourne, in Victoria. This Meg was in Melbourne taking her law degree, and she made the front page because she was appointed an advisor to Michael Samara, who was yet to become the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea. And it was huge, it was a big deal. So she was actually in her final year of her law degree and she was 21.
Oh.
What were you doing at 21? I know. Just let that sink in. So she was 21 when she took on the role of advising our future Prime Minister, first Prime Minister, Sir Michael Samara, who's then is no longer alive. And it's unfortunate Meg can't be here for the majority of this week. She was here on Tuesday, but she went back home to Papua New Guinea to help bury Sir Ravi Namalu, who, when Meg was appointed this job, she shared that role with Sir Ravi to help lead the nation. And so this image was 50 years ago to this year. And so it's quite significant in terms of sort of revisit this, where she started, her career started. And here she is now, back in my homelands, in Rabaul, helping put Sir Ravi to rest. So I just wanted to put this image up first because after some of the research that I was doing in regards to Meg's life, I realised that her career started at the University of Melbourne. And I was looking through the Age newspaper and doing a lot of research, and I was just trying to capture a sense of the time. So Meg was doing her law degree at the University of Melbourne in 1972, 1973. And she started her law degree at the University of Papua New Guinea. She was one of 4 students doing a law degree. And so she was the only woman doing that there in 1971. So she got a scholarship into Australia to study because back then the White Australia policy was still in force and was not fully repealed until 1975. So the only way you got into Australia was like through a scholarship or if you married someone who was white. And so this is to sort of give a sense of that time period. And then the 1970s was just so radical. And if you look at this particular front page, there's some serious race politics going on here. Yeah. Look at the top, yeah? I'm thinking about you, Natalie. I'm really sorry for you to see this, but it's pretty confronting. Aboriginal girl dragged off. Missionary tells foster-parents to forget her. And then down the bottom, you've got Muhammad Ali. African Americans. So who was like, there's a hierarchy of race going on here, and you've got Meg in the middle. It's amazing that she's actually, she's not showing her legs, because a lot of the images of women in the age in the 1970s were just women with legs, like this, like all up like this. I'm not kidding. And so whenever New Guinea was mentioned in the age in the 1970s, we were always New Guinea or NG, we were an acronym. That's how frequently we were in the Australian media. And when Aboriginal people were referred to were native. I saw a lot of reports on Uncle Linonis, a really strong Yoruba man who's an amazing artist, but first and foremost an activist. So I saw him come up a lot. This is also the time when Angela Davis was on trial in the US. And the last image of there is the Australian flag being lowered. Our leaders taking over self-governance. Can we get the next slide? This is 1966, Port Moresby. I just wanted to show this because no one talks about racial segregation in Papua New Guinea. 9 years before we got independence, this was happening. Even Ella Beach, the main beach, there were signs saying white beach for whites. No one talks about this. Like, it's just, even in the history books, it's kind of like there's a real romantic view lens of Australia colonising. Initially it was British Papua, and then, after World War I, World War II, Papua and New Guinea. And so these are all Bill Gavage's photos. He wrote a history regarding Meg's father, Jim Taylor, who's a really well-known settler in Papua New Guinea. And Meg came to Australia because she felt like she was living in her father's shadow. And so she came to Australia to forge her career, and she did it. And just one little added note, if you look at the Australian flag in 1901 when we became a nation, Australia became federated, there's, the Commonwealth Star, the big one at the bottom of the flag, there was originally 6 points. But then after World War One, and like Australia kind of like acquired the whole of like the eastern half of Papua New Guinea, or Papua New Guinea, they added another point to the star. So the 7-pointed star. You look at the Australian flag, 7 points, that represents Papua New Guinea, and it hasn't changed. So it represents all the territories that belonged to Australia. So it's still, that point is still, the Commonwealth Star, the 7th point, is still on the Australian flag to this day. Just a little bit of history. Next slide. The other thing I had to be really mindful of were Meg's parents, particularly her father, who's just such a foreboding kind of figure historically. And the union between Meg's parents was one of love, and that was quite rare, particularly in the early 1930s. And I have to be very sensitive about this particular relationship because, you know, I think Meg was able to prosper and thrive because she came from a family of lovers, and both of her parents were ostracised in both of the communities. So Jim was ostracised with the whites, and Meg's family were kind of a bit wary of this new white person. Who was kind of, you know, this was the kind of like first contact up the highlands of Papua New Guinea, you know, so it's quite precarious time era. People are kind of just, you know, struggling to communicate with each other. And so when Meg's mother died, look at the way that she was actually written about. So all these forms of representation, I was just kind of looking at, trying to understand how Papua New Guinea have been represented, and that's a very key part of my PhD research that I'm doing, is this visual representation of Papua New Guinea women. And I'm looking at it from both sides of the lens, so the way that we've been portrayed and when we hold the lens. So we can go to the next slide, please. So, Meg, this is when the lens faces Meg, and this is her 1 year after her father died. She retraces his footsteps and asserts her narrative over her lands on highlands. And I don't think people actually acknowledge or even realise how powerful this film is. It's held in the National Film and Sound Archives just over here, literally across the street. You can watch it. And that's Meg, it's a film still. I think that's with Bill Gavish, the film crew. And we just hear Meg's voice talking. The camera follows her, it's her story. I encourage everyone to watch it. I don't know if anyone knew that Meg made the film. Next slide, please. This is why Meg's awesome.
Fabulous.
Next slide. So, because Meg has been here speaking about the theme of this conference, I just wanted to kind of insert some of Meg's quotes in relation to the artwork I'm about to show you that I made. And, you know, the great leadership that she showed during her term as the Secretary General of the Gardens Forum. She stood down from the same year that I was making work and research in it. So, she's amazing. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is the artwork that I made for Meg to honour her legacy. And I wanted to honour her whilst she was still alive, and so that she had input into actually how she wanted to be represented. And I worked with her, and I called her up. I managed to get her number from my cousin. And I was like, he Meg's number. And I called her and I was like, so nervous. I was like, hi Meg, I'm Lisa. She's like, who? Lisa who? Lisa Hilli. She's like, oh no, I don't know. I was like, okay. It's all good. My ego wasn't raised. I was like, okay. I'm sort of told her what I wanted to do, and I said, yeah, I'm going to do this project about University of Balai. And she said, yeah, well, they haven't got my name on the graduation list. And I said, yeah, well, that's the problem. I said, you know, you're invisible. And I said, I want to change that. And then she was like, you know, we're on the same page. She's like, okay, send me an email, give me all the information. And I gave her a long email, and she just got fired back with 2 sentences, cut through, done. I was like, great. And so, I ended up using a lot of Meg's quotes of the time when she was at the University of Balai, when she was learning to become a lawyer. Because when you're a lawyer, it's all about your word, you know, what you say and the written word. And so I used quotes that Meg kind of had sort of said or that were published in the newspaper or in interviews that kind of really spoke to the kind of woman that she is. And I also incorporated some audio within the exhibition that sort of was at the entrance to the gallery. So we can play some of the audio, please, to give people that experience. So the audio is obviously Birds of Paradise, and everyone, most people would know that Birds of Paradise are like an iconic bird for Papua New Guinea, it's on our flag. And when I first spoke to me about the project, I said, I think I want to use Birds of Paradise feathers in some way. And she said, oh yeah, you know, and everyone in Papua New Guinea knows that people in the highlands, like, they go hard with like the bilas, the body adornment, and it's particularly the Birds of Paradise feathers. Meg told me, she said, oh, my people call me Mek, M-E-K. And I said, she said, oh, it means the bird of paradise with a long black tail. And I was like, oh, perfect. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. And so the University of Melbourne didn't have a lot of Birds of Paradise bird specimens, but the University of Melbourne has a very strong historical connection with museums Victoria, where I used to work. And I've seen their Birds of Paradise collection, and it's enormous. And it's like 300 of them. So my former colleagues basically just gave me the key to the collection, so I was like, sweet. So I went in there and just took lots of photos with a macro lens. Can we go to the next slide? Just to show a bit of the detail. We're going to look at this one. So there's like a loop 10 audio bird calls, and I got them from Cornell University. There's like an ornithology lab. Really cool bird of paradise research project that they're doing over in the States. So this is just a bit of the detail. So the macro photography images of the Birds of Paradise feathers printed on fabric, and I sort of just collaged all of the birds' feathers together and incorporated Meg's words in each of the sort of panels. And to sort of reclaim the Birds of Paradise back to people, back to our bodies, back to our ways that we use it and the way that we identify. And just wanted to bring that visual language that Papua New Guineans have distinctly and that we understand. And so, the next slide, please. So the work also extended out into the cloisters, which is just kind of adjacent or outside of the gallery. I don't know how well you guys know the Melbourne University campus, but the cloisters is like a square kind of area, and it's a meditative space. And so these kind of notice boards were like kind of dotted around the square area, and they were just like old archival images, and I just basically took over with more of Meg's quotes. And the next slide. Oh, is Jocelyn in the building? Jocelyn Flynn. There's Jocelyn. In the spirit of Meg, you know, honouring women and encouraging women to, you know, get educated and make contributions to their global societies. I asked Jocelyn, who's at the Yuki Museum in Brisbane, to write an essay responding to the work. So yeah, get that QR code. You can download the exhibition catalogue directly. And so it was a commission for myself and Balai and James Nguyen, 3 commissions, and Jocelyn's catalogue essay is in there, and it's called On the Wings of Meg. It's beautiful. Thank you, Jocelyn. Next slide, which is the last one. I just want to finish off with Meg's amazing words of wisdom and leadership. Really, really proud and honoured to have worked with Meg, to, you know, sort of honoured her in this way. She is, you know, inspiration for so many of us, myself included, and I just really want to honour her. and expand the narrative. Expand the narrative of Papua New Guinea women, not just being mamas and aunties and sisters, which isn't a bad thing, but I think in Papua New Guinea, when we were emerging as a nation, that title, that kind of identity of like PNG mamas and aunties stripped us of being citizens, as, contributing to our society. And, I think Meg's career and her life completely divides this, and it's, it's an inspiration for others to follow. So, if you're in Melbourne on the 29th of April, Meg and I are going to have a conversation at the University of Melbourne, and it's just going to be us talking about our politics and the law. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a bunch of questions, but I'm going to open up to the floor and prioritize. I'd like to prioritize questions from folks with connections to Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, Bougainville, and Samoa, and particularly if you have Fa'afafine Satana and Wellington as well. And then if it's deafening silence, I'll ask my questions.
Hi, my name is Tete. I'm from Papua New Guinea, Central Province, Motukoita, Gairo Village in Kruger, and I'm also part Tarshada, an Aboriginal person from Mara and Dania and Kundu Farmers Queensland. My question is directed at Lisa, especially the work that you do on community representation, both the lens on us and how we flip the lens and represent ourselves. And I wanted to ask if there's any positive representation that you've come across in your works to share with the group.
Yeah, so in terms of positive representations, regarding my PhD research, I'm focusing on 3 particular women, and that's one of them is Meg, and the other one is Maggie Wilson, who is connected to the Léuli family. If anyone knows the history of the Léuli brothers, connected to Jim Taylor, so there's a real genealogy there. And Anita Baru, who I think is the first photographer from Port Moresby. That's yet to be going to do a bit more research, but so I'm kind of just looking at the historical, I'm looking at the first ones, like the first lens-based practitioners, because that research hasn't been done. There's a lot of us today who are holding the lens, myself included, and I just wanted to kind of trace that genealogy and understand where did it begin, because I always felt like that my art history is just kind of like non-existent, as a photographer, female filmmaker, all that. Where is it? So I think today a lot of Pacific women, a lot of Papua women are creating really amazing positive imagery, but also complex images. And so in looking at these 3 women, Maggie Wilson in particular, I think she was the first. And so I've since located my first film that was made in Paris. There's a lot of research I've got to do, so I'm going overseas quite soon to have a look at some of that stuff. But she also made a really amazing film up in the Highlands that actually explored a woman who's in a relationship, a married woman who had an affair, and how that was just so taboo in the Highlands, and so just, I think I don't know if I'm answering the question, but I think it is important to have positive imagery, but I think it's also good to have complexity in those stories. And Maggie, one of Maggie's first films that she produced under her production company, Tilo Kilkuan, she did that and under her terms and in a completely different way in terms of how production happens in film. And I think that's really fascinating because it's a very different approach to how the West makes films. It was done very much on a Highlands kind of, kinship system of how does this filmmaking project benefit the community, which I think is amazing. So I hope that is a positive representation of Meg, that work in terms of, and it's not exactly there's no images of Meg in that work, and that was intentional. So in the other aspect of my PhD research is understanding women's agency and how they use the lens and Meg didn't want to be visually represented. Like, and I took that on, and I was like, okay, that's agency. Like, that's giving her the choice how she wanted to be represented and respecting that, not going against it. And so I'm kind of looking at these kind of really key things in my research, like what is agency for Papua New Guinea? What is that? What does it look like? And that was it for me and Meg. You know, I actually put forward an image to her that I kind of mocked up and was like, I actually didn't like it. As soon as I sent it to her, I was like, oh, I hate it. And she hated it too. And I was like, phew, I'm glad, because I actually didn't want to go there. I felt like I was forcing something that wasn't fitting. Which was like, no, Lisa, I don't like it. And I was like, okay, yeah, all good. And so I ended up just going specifically with the Birds of Paradise feathers and her works, because that represents who she is. And so I think that is a positive, outcome in terms of honouring Meg and respecting who she is and how she wanted to be represented.
Thank you, Lisa. That was the perfect answer. And to add context to my question, my master's thesis on traditional tattoo practices, particularly Reba from Central Province. And so in my research, it's just anthropologist pictures of our women without us, without our names, generalization. So to see you writing about us, for us, giving our agency, our sovereignty over our bodies back, is this hope for the future that I want to include in my literature review. Trying not to cry, but
You explain it? Yeah. We have a question at the back.
Thank you everyone for such an energizing and very emotionally engaging panel. It's so nice to end on such a powerful presentation from all the people on this panel. I was just wondering, I had a question to Yuki about specifically the work that you've done with Gauguin's artwork, and that was really very powerful, sarcastic and funny, yet very political and critical. I'm just wondering what were the legal implications, or if you had to do any legal implications with working with Gauguin's work, or having to impersonate him or whatever. Did you have to deal with any of this bullshit in your work?
Not at all. Because the thing is that, Léuli, can you please go get the exhibition catalog? So when I talked about his work, because I had to talk about the inspiration behind it. So when I sought to talk about his work and publish in the exhibition catalog, which is now available, the license that came with publishing his work in the exhibition catalog also extended into the video, and then to some of the archive material that's featured in the Paradise Camp exhibition. So, so long as I actually acknowledged the photographer of the artwork and the institution where the paintings belong to, I was okay. And then so far, I haven't got into trouble, but if I do, then I don't really care. Yeah, and then just a little plug that Paradise Camp is actually touring Samoa, and it's going to be opening at the Salatoma Sands Resort, which is in the southeast coast of Bougainville Island. And so this is the resort where the Paradise Camp headquarters took place. And then so the idea behind the return of Paradise Camp to Samoa is that I actually wanted to take it to the place where the production took place at Salatoma Sands Resort, because the production involved 100 people, most of which actually employed the local people in the village, including the Fa'afafines in the village, and which is also a district that's still sort of struggling to recover from the 2009 tsunami. It's going to be a big party, so hopefully y'all can join us, and it's going to be opening next year in June.
I think we're out of time because we're running over. So if you'd like to come up and ask questions to the panelists, I'd really like to thank you for your powerful contributions to world making. to redressing institutional and structural biases, anti-blackness, all kinds of segregation and prejudice against all of our embodiments through your research creation. And thank you all for your attendance today.
And thank you, Léuli. Thank you, Léuli.